And we're live, ladies and gentlemen, folks of all genders. Greetings, salutations. Today we're going to talk about how musicians can bring in money with their own websites, and this is something that's very dear to my heart. Obviously, for anyone that's tuning in that doesn't know, I'm also a musician myself, and in fact, everyone on this call today is a musician. So, very excited to be able to meld these two worlds and talk about some of the things that we've been working on and things that are of value to musicians the world over. So yeah, let's just get into it. um, let's just go through the agenda real quick so we can talk about what we're ultimately going to be doing here. Um, the first thing that we want to cover is just the problem for musicians. We want to talk a little bit about the fan journey and how to align your marketing and your content efforts with it. Then we're going to talk about what are the makings of a good or strong artist website, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how do we own our SERPs and be visible in search engines and so on. We're going to talk about the revenue of music, where can we get money actually, and then talking about a website centered marketing strategy. So I think so many folks, just from the inertia of where users are going with their behavior, are so focused on the social channels, but and they ultimately neglect having a website. But how do we reverse that and build a mechanism wherein you can get more value from something that you own? Then we'll get into parting thoughts and so on. And like I said, I'm Mike King. You can find me on the interwebs at iPullRank. I've got a song out called Made It. It's on all the platforms. It features a gentleman by the name of Music Soul Child. So, check that out. And with me, I also have the amazing, incomparable Wes Walls. Wes, why don't you tell them about yourself?
That's a nice intro. Thanks. Yeah, I'm Wes. I'm the director of marketing for Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle is a website platform for musicians. It's really like an all-in-one. Um, everything you need to build a website, promote your music through your website, and sell and earn money off your website. Everything's kind of built into one package. So yeah, if you're looking for a website, looking to promote your music, sell music, check out Bandzoogle. Yeah, that's me. I'm also a musician under my own name, Wes Walls, and releasing music and trying to make TikToks and things like that.
Yeah, and Aaron, why don't you also introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Aaron Johnson. I'm the senior digital marketing specialist at iPull Rank, and I also make music under the name Rano. That's Rano. And I've been making music for about 10 years now. So, doing this for a while. Super excited to jump in and try to help you guys out with how you can make some money off of this.
Cool. So yeah, the primary problem for musicians, is it's a function of ownership. It's also a function of visibility and how do I get myself out there? Like that's ultimately the question that every musician is trying to solve. And the way things are set up is like, you're really just kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, or not even one basket, multiple baskets with these different social channels. And that the ideal situation is you make a thing, you put it on one of these channels, and it goes quote unquote viral. People discover you, and that aspect of things is it has a very strong draw. Right, at the end of the day, we all want people to hear our music. And so making a YouTube video 10 years ago where you did a cover, and then people keep coming back to you, and you build your fan base, your audience there, was very much a viable way of doing things. And in fact, to some degree, you know being active on these channels, putting everything into these channels, can be incredibly valuable to that respect, in that you can become an influencer, you can have other brands coming to you to help monetize and things like that. But you're building a house on borrowed land. Like you don't really have the opportunity to have true control over what you can do in those channels. And so if we all think back to the MySpace days, that was where all of this kind of started for musicians. It was like you had your MySpace profile, you threw your music up there, and if you had 100,000 friends or whatever, the labels came knocking because it was like, hey, you must be popping, right? Like there's a lot of artists that made a name for themselves at this time. But I was someone who had something like 50,000 friends on MySpace, and every time I would post one of those, I can't remember what it's called. It was like a community post, like you posted something and everyone would see it. I'd be like, yo, I'm trying to go on tour, and people would flood my inbox with shows. But then MySpace disappeared, and then what did I have? Like I still had my website, but it was so secondary with respect to the reach. So, and then there's also the aspect that if you build your audience on these channels and you really want to focus on the organic reach, you don't want to run ads and things like that. We all know you get your 100,000 followers and suddenly only 5% of them are seeing the things that you post. They may change rules and algorithms at any point, and then despite the fact that you physically have these followers, you can't reach them. So what's the point? And their guidelines change regularly as well, right? Like we have excuse me, I know a lot of creators who in a variety of different fields who suddenly they'll log in their Instagram account is just gone. So if it's someone else's house, they can change the rules at any point, and then suddenly you just lose out on all that equity that you've built. Now, when we think about this idea of these third-party platforms, a lot of people are using these sort of things for the whole link in bio sort of page. And it's never really made sense to me because, again, if you have your own website, you can completely control what that landing page is, and you can also drive traffic and links directly to yourself. But instead, folks are using these platforms, which you of course have to pay for, which again makes no sense. If you've already got a website, you don't have to pay to put pages on your website. You just make a specific page for whatever you're trying to promote at that time. And so to that point, if we skip 2 slides ahead, you'll see that you're losing out on a ton of link equity if you care about SEO by doing this. So this is specifically Link.to, which is one of those platforms. They have historically had over 300 million links pointing to their site because of what we're doing by using these platforms rather than using our own websites. So, you're promoting a site that you don't own or a platform that you don't own, like a Spotify or whatever, with another site that you don't own. And basically the website that you have is missing out on these opportunities to drive that traffic and visibility.
Yeah, that's something we're excited about at Bandzoogle. We've been working on building out some templates, content templates to help artists, really easily build those kind of pages on their site. It's such an obvious thing to do. Especially if you understand SEO. I mean, it's really like you were saying, it's really like a no-brainer.
Yeah. Like why am I helping this third-party platform grow its visibility and drive traffic and make money? Like they literally created a middleman step for no reason. And I love the fact that you guys at Bandzoogle are solving that problem. I would love to see more people pick that up. And so when you're leveraging tools like this or these third-party pages, you're missing out on the data to indicate how is this actually performing. Sure, you get the referral traffic numbers when a user clicks a link on that page back to your core site or whatever, but you're missing out on most of that traffic and a lot of those insights with respect to what sort of demographics and psychographics we're actually visiting these pages, because it's just limited data that's available. And then when you think about some of these other platforms that are in use for monetization. So whether it's OnlyFans, Patreon, Gumroad, and so on, again, you're inserting another party to take your money. And as I understand it, Bandzoogle, you guys don't do that at all. Like it's commission free. If you want to speak a little about that.
Yeah, we try to offer alternatives to a lot of these sorts of tools to allow users to operate those kinds of monetization tools on their own site, and it's part of the all-in-one kind of package that we offer. So anything that you run, whether it's like a subscription program or crowdfunding or selling merch or whatever, you can do all that on your own site. Obviously we're talk about like owned audiences and stuff later. I think audiences later, but being able to kind of build your own owned audiences, it's your own owned media, and be able to use all these kind of possibilities for monetizing and not have to pay third party commission fees and things like that. So all of those things that we offer are all commission free.
Yeah, and then the other aspect of it is those third-party platforms, it can go either way. Like they either may outrank you or they may not rank well at all. And it's really you having to do all the work to drive traffic to these websites. As we discussed on the next slide, where we're just showing that there's like low visibility for some of these pages. So in the example, we're seeing on page 2, that this person's Patreon is like, kind of buried. So to some degree, that could be a good thing if you're trying to make sure that you're owning the first page. But if you're not and you don't have a website and the thing that makes you the most money is on page 2, it's a high likelihood that that's never going to be seen. So Aaron, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the revenue of music?
Yeah, of course. Had to unmute really quick. So just really quickly going over just like how musicians made money with their websites in 2021. So we've got, everything from the digital music sales. Merch sales are at $6.4 million, which lets you know that merch is really important for musicians. Ticket sales are up at $831,000, which is actually pretty insane considering what we went through in 2020. And then we've got digital merch sales, fan subscriptions, and tip jar donations. So there are just a variety of ways for musicians to make money. And you have to explore really all of your options, especially if you're operating independently.
Yeah, and to that point, Wes, are there any things that you might want to highlight? Because obviously this is you guys' data. Anything you want to highlight about this?
I mean, not specifically, other than just to say that, like, there's so many creative ways to earn revenue from your music that goes beyond just the music itself, right? And I think this kind of illustrates that, and it does take a little bit of, I think, probably take some creativity, some out of the box thinking, maybe like understanding your audience a little bit, what they might be interested in or how they might want to support you. So there's a lot of I don't think it's necessarily, there's probably no easy wins necessarily, but there are, if you're able to kind of like think of different ways of interacting with your audiences and kind of incorporating like monetization tools and things like that. There's like a lot of ways that you can earn revenue using these different kinds of tools and content.
Cool. So just going through these trends a bit more, Aaron, tell us a little bit more about, the distribution of digital music sales.
Yeah, so digital music sales, anybody who's an artist in the audience probably understands that streaming, it's really hard to break your record. It's really hard to get a lot of streams, and you don't really get paid too well when you're operating through streaming services. I mean, 65% of the global recorded music industry, all of their revenue a good amount of their revenue is coming from streaming, but it's not necessarily going to the artist. So you can see, on this graph here that YouTube pays pretty much nothing per stream. And the most that you're going to get paid is via Xbox Music. And I'm not sure how many subscribers there are to Xbox Music, but I would venture to believe that it's not it's not anywhere near close to the amount of people who are discovering new music on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music and apps like that. So
yeah, it's actually interesting that the rate is kind of inversely proportional to the number of users. So
yeah.
YouTube having, dramatically more users than Xbox Music or Xbox in general, they're like, okay, we're gonna pay pennies, or not even pennies, fractions of a penny, but they're all doing that. Whereas Xbox being, I don't even know anyone that plays Xbox anymore. Not to say that they don't, but like, obviously they have the smallest user base in this list, so it actually makes sense that it operates that way.
Yeah. And so digital merch sales are definitely another avenue that you can explore to try to get money, and try to just like find any way that you can to kind of increase your income as an artist. So NFTs of course are extremely popular right now. We see a lot of artists jumping into that game with people like Steve Aoki and Tory Lanez. So there's an opportunity there. And the thing about NFTs that makes them really intriguing for artists is that it kind of cuts out that middleman and allows their fans essentially to be the investors. So you have an opportunity there for your fans to be essentially buying into your music, where you can put out an album, you can have it crowdfunded by your fans, and when the album comes out, you can give them a percentage of the royalties for something that they were included in. So it's a way to build a better connection with your fans, and also continue bringing in more sources of income.
Yeah, just a sidebar. I think NFTs are stupid. Although, I mean, but the thing is, like, if people say they're valuable, then they're valuable. Like, that's just how value works, right? But I can't.
It's essentially just a receipt when you really think about it.
A receipt for something that you don't actually own.
Yeah. Because you just own the idea of it. Kind of. It's a very interesting playing field. But yeah, and then we look at kind of just like how the trends in music have changed and where we've gone from, of course, more traditional physical copies, like, of course, CDs, vinyls, cassette tapes, to now where everything has gone digital. And it's so interesting to look at this graph where like the early 2000s into 2010, where CDs were so dominant, and then so rapidly streaming kind of took over, and it never really looked back. Once we got into the 2010s, after the blog era, where everybody was downloading music from different, music websites and music blogs, now we're at a point where like selling CDs and vinyls have become almost like almost like a commodity, where you get like, limited editions or things of that nature. So it's interesting how drastically the music industry has changed over the last decade.
Yeah, one of the things that's especially interesting to me looking at this graph is just how profitable CDs were, because they were just so inexpensive to create, and people were just super down to buy them. Like, it was the only way. It was like, cool, I want this one song, and the only way I can get it is on this album. Okay, I'll give you $20 for something that cost you like 25 cents to make. So the music industry got away with something for a good few decades, and it's remarkable just to see, like, okay, now that music is completely ubiquitous, the different ways that we consider value with respect to that.
I think it's worth pointing out too. I think with streaming right now, like it's so skewed towards major artists. I think for independent artists, it's kind of an interesting time, because streaming is obviously like a much smaller piece of where your revenues are going to be coming from. But there are all those opportunities for selling, directly to fans, and making, can be a lot more profitable if you're still, able to sell vinyl or tapes, to fans directly. Those kind of opportunities maybe were a lot less accessible than they were, are a lot more accessible now than they were, even 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've got, of course, physical merch, which is a huge thing for artists. I mean, as you can see here, on average, one t-shirt sale is equal to 5,000 streams. So if you're putting out music and all you're doing is dropping your record and just saying, go stream this on Spotify out now, you're missing an opportunity. One, to build your brand through merch like t-shirts and things of that nature, but two, to make some more profits on your work. And then you look at like how many artists have packaged merch with their CDs and with their tapes to kind of increase the value there. People like Nipsey Hussle, who was kind of famous for putting out the mixtape where he dropped it and he sold each mixtape for like $1,000, and Jay-Z bought a few copies. And even somebody like Travis Scott, who like there was some controversy around him releasing his record, and like a good majority of the sales came from merch, and he was at the top of the Billboard charts, and people were kind of saying, well, this isn't really about the music, it's about the clothing that he's selling. But it's an opportunity there, and you have to take advantage of it, because people want more than just the music. They like these artists for more than just the music, and they like you for more than just what you have to offer musically. So you should definitely take advantage of it.
Wait, what was the Travis Scott thing? He was like selling.
So with Astroworld, he sold, when that album first came out, it was being sold with merchandise. And so there was a large argument that kind of created a large argument around on the internet around, like, should artists be allowed to go to say they went platinum, or to have like a #1 selling album, if we're, comparatively, if, I don't know, Taylor Swift releases the same way and it's just her album, versus somebody who's adding on things like merchandise and t-shirts and things of that nature. Is it the same, and do they deserve to have that platinum status?
Gotcha. That's actually not too dissimilar from how Prince was doing his thing. Like, I want to say it's like 15 or so years ago, where he would basically give you a free copy of the album with your concert ticket, because he was getting far more people that came to concerts than like were buying the albums. And so inherently he was going, he was doing his platinum or whatever it was, largely because of his ticket sales. So I personally don't think that's a problem. I think that's smart.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, I think that you are essentially getting your fans, excuse the noise behind me, I've got people outside my window, but you're essentially getting your fans to buy into you as an entire brand entity. And people want more than just music now, which we're finally starting to realize. And so I think there's an opportunity to just get people more involved. You have to do more than make music now in 2022 to get other fans involved in your work.
Cool. So I'm just being mindful. Oh, go ahead, Wes. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I just want to point out that Billboard, I think it was last year, they changed the rules around bundling. We with Bandzoogle, we report to Billboard, so we report music sales to Billboard. So we made a few changes to our platform to kind of comply with how what their rules are, what they expect. I don't remember what the exact details are, but there are some particularities around that. You can probably check out. I think we have some help article content around that. But it's something to think about. If charting is important to you, probably good to know what those rules are around bundling.
Cool. So yeah, just being mindful of time, I want to make sure that we get through this section relatively quickly, because we're almost at a half hour and a lot more content to discuss.
Yeah, definitely. So over here we've got subscriptions, which if you're an artist and you've been online, that there are plenty of artists who are using other tools that are at their disposal to start subscription services like courses, vocal coaching, songwriting, etc. And then subscriptions are also an opportunity to offer exclusive content, where maybe somebody subscribes to your service and or subscribes to your emailing list, and you send them alternate verses and different versions of your song to, of course, beef up your content and just add some extra value there. Ticket sales, of course, when it comes to artist revenue, we all know how important live shows have been to the music industry over the last decade or so. Right now, they account for 35% of the average musician's income, make up 43% of total revenue in the music industry. So there's a lot of opportunity there to make money. And there's also an opportunity to provide extra value by connecting with your fans after the show, potentially, offering different packages at your shows so that people can come connect with you and take pictures. And then just some tips. So you want to offer your services like building content calendars. If you have those skills, whatever skills you have at your disposal, whether it's writing artist bios, electronics press kits, mixing, songwriting, ghostwriting, it would be extremely helpful for you to add those services to your site. And then consultation for things like music marketing and mixing as well, just to, because a lot of the fans that you're going to encounter in their early stages are also going to be other musicians that are going to be looking for that type of stuff. And then another tip, you want to create an environment where you're known for more than just the music. So this gentleman here is a rapper. His name is Smart Rapper, and he also shares content on YouTube. He's built an entire YouTube channel around how to launch your music career and the science of rap. Just the way to put words together, the way to write songs. And so that's an opportunity there because, again, a ton of people are looking to break into music.
Yeah, it's like basically thought leadership, like the same thing that I do, Wes does for marketing our businesses, do that as a rapper or as a musician.
Yeah, for sure. And then with courses, you can see here, like Carlos Santana has a course where he teaches guitar. There's a slew of master classes now out there where you can learn how to DJ from Deadmau5 through a master class. Right here, Young Guru, which is Jay-Z's mixing engineer, you can learn from him. So there's an opportunity there for artists to create these courses and teach people how to do different things within music and provide value for other artists.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about the fan journey, and I really love what you guys have done at Bandzoogle as far as like how you've laid that out. So why don't we put that up on the screen, and Wes, why don't you walk us through the fan journey?
Yeah, the fan journey. So this is based off of for anybody who's familiar with the customer journey. Basically, this is just kind of I just basically took that idea and kind of like fashioned it into something that would make sense for musicians. I actually made this for the a little few years ago, so it's probably some of these little bullet points are probably need to be updated. But basically, starting from, it's kind of like a model for thinking about like how, what kind of path do you want to create for your audience? What kind of path would you like them to follow that's going to provide value to you as a kind of a business and to your fans? So obviously the part that most artists think the most about, which makes sense, is the discovery aspect. So like where do you find audiences? Other platforms have audiences. How do you tap into those to get people to discover your music? So it's going to happen obviously like on TikTok. It's going to happen on radio, maybe maybe wherever people discover music, Bandcamp, that kind of thing. Spotify playlists, editorial playlists, stuff like that. So that's kind of the discovery phase. Once they've discovered your music, then what happens? And they're gonna want to explore. If they're interested, if your music has kind of piqued their interest, they're gonna want to learn like, hey, who is this artist? Like, what's their name? What are they up to? Are they active? When are they like a current artist, or was this like old music? Like what is this song that I heard that I liked? Started to kind of explore, what you're all about. So you want to be providing content for that, giving them kind of opportunities for the fans to kind of explore and learn what you're all about. From that point, kind of going on to the purchase phase. This could be, this could kind of happen in different order. It's obviously not always going to happen in this exact order, but it's a way to kind of think about it. So from there, going to what you want to do once you kind of have that kind of audience that you've built and they're interested in you, is to kind of go towards lead it towards a purchase funnel so that you're monetizing that audience. And then from there, working on kind of creating, I guess this is sort of where the owned audience comes in. Like, how do you kind of make sure that you create a relationship that you keep over the long term? So kind of, pulling them into your mailing list, or getting, follows on social media, or getting people to track you in bands in town, or follow you in Bandcamp or whatever. Anywhere where you can kind of maintain like an ongoing kind of conversation with them. And then the kind of the final kind of ultimate kind of the ultimate fan, really, I guess, at the very end of this funnel would be kind of like the fan that kind of kind of turns into other fans, where they recommend you, to talk about you, they they share your content around, things like that. So they're kind of advocating for you, and in a way kind of helping you build your fan base. So that's kind of the concept there of the fan journey, and kind of helps kind of think about what kind of experience and content to create to make sure that you're satisfying each step of that journey.
Yeah, and what I love about it the most is that you're bringing this marketing concept of the consumer decision journey, and you're making it real for musicians. Like you said, you're saying, okay, at this stage, these are the things that you're probably targeting or should be thinking about targeting. So I love how it kind of takes it out of that abstract and makes it more real for them. And the way I think of, or the way that we think of this, like generally speaking in marketing, is like, okay, how do we map those things to different types of content? How do we map that content to the right KPIs? So that we're making sure that we're measuring everything effectively, and we can see what's working and what's not. And like you said, it isn't always as linear as we put it. Just like when you look at a train map, just because the line is straight doesn't mean that there's no turns, right? So the reality here is that you've got to understand what content works best at which stage, and also understand that the more powerful content, or the higher quality content, can be leveraged not just for discovery, because most people think of it that way. Like, I make a really strong music video because I want people to talk about this, and people can discover my music. Like, end of the day, that's what a music video has always been, like a promotional tool, primarily targeting people that don't necessarily know about you. And so to that end, you can leverage content like that, driving people specifically to sign up to your mailing list, or if you create some sort of like interactive experience, which a lot of bands are moving to do, you can leverage that. And so this is what I'm saying, where I'm like, okay, let's make sure go back to the other slide. We're aligning different content assets with the right KPIs. The slide that you were just on, not this one. Okay. So no, the funnel slide that you were on. So in this case, you've got awareness, you've got awareness content could be interactive. You measure that in a certain way, like perhaps by social shares, by links, by traffic that comes to your site. You wouldn't necessarily measure that based on sales, because someone who has just discovered you is probably not necessarily ready to buy. Especially if they've discovered you through like an interactive piece, it may just be the time for you to say, hey, let me just get your email address so I can keep communicating with you, and showing you something that's closer to the sale, right? Like perhaps you continue to push people to listen to other music, other songs that you've put out, or like new collaboration, let them know about that so they keep coming back to your site. And then you give them another piece of content to get them closer to buying that ticket, to buying that merch, and so on. You just got to think of it as like an ongoing relationship that you're leveraging your website and your social channels and wherever else you're active to get these people back to you, so you can ultimately sell them something. And so again, the main thing to think about is that everything you're doing is content. Whether it's your social posts, your videos, your infographics, like anything that you're creating, all those things are content. So how do you leverage those effectively? Like, you make a new song, that's a piece of content in a variety of ways. You post the lyrics, you post the um you post the song itself, you post the stems so they can remix it. Any asset that you're creating, and I'm hesitant to say asset because we all think from an art perspective when we're thinking about music, but that can all be used in a variety of ways. And so on this next slide where we bring it back to the concept of that funnel. And again, this aligns directly with the fan journey that Wes and his team laid out. So how do you make sure you have the right content for the right stages? And then you're also measuring that effectively so you can determine, like, okay, where are people falling out here? Like, for instance, if you're trying to get them to go through that whole series of things and you get to that consideration stage and no one sees value in signing up for your email newsletter, or they do sign up and then they unsubscribe because you're sending things that they don't want or what have you, that gives you a good understanding of where you can change things, optimize things to get more value out of the folks that you're working with. Aaron, over to you. You're on mute.
Yeah. So you want to produce some high quality short form content around your music on social media. You want to make sure that like you're giving people high quality content that like lets them know who you are, lets them know what you're about. You want to make sure that you're putting in not just promoting super hard with your music, but adding in content that's actually valuable, because a lot of people tend to just post new song out now and then wonder why they're not getting traction every time there's a new release. And then also you want to match your content with search intent. So you want to make sure that you have an understanding of like what your audience is searching for around your music, whether it's like a song that's really popular that you have, or if there's some other sources of content, other things that you do, to the point that, we were talking about courses and mixing. You want to make sure that the content on your website is matching up with that search intent as well. As you can see, like Beyonce is, of course, she has a team behind her, so she has a very good understanding of what works and what people are looking for from her. And then you want to drive traffic to your socials, through your socials, to your site with clear CTAs. As you can see, Kendrick Lamar, when he released his new album, he actually went back to a tweet from an old fan, which is really, really superb marketing. And he tweeted the link to his website for everybody to go view the announcement for the new album. And this is kind of just him jokingly jumping in because somebody said Kendrick Lamar has officially retired, which we found out that was not true.
Yeah, and I think this right here is the kind of the crux of what we're talking about here. Like, don't just build the audience on these social channels. The social channels are just ways to get them back to your website. You want to be thinking of the social feeds like they're watching TV, and every time you post, that's a commercial for your website, for your brand, for your career, and bring them back to the own media channel where you have complete control over things.
Yeah, I kind of think about it as like, you're on those platforms like TikTok, you're sort of like creating content to kind of conform to and like leverage those platforms specifically, right? Like you're creating on TikTok short form video content, and so you're trying to kind of conform to what they do and what's going to best work on that platform. Like, is it all with the goal of eventually like getting those audiences to move to like the next stage of the fan journey, basically?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then you want to cultivate relationships through your mailing lists and on-site events. So Versus is extremely famous for their events, their live events that have garnered millions of views now, through just bringing artists together and kind of using that to promote. Usually legacy acts is what Versus does, but you can have live events where you can have live jam sessions. You can reach out to other artists to talk about new projects that they're working on. You can use your lives to break down your music. And so you just want to cultivate those relationships through like having those events where your fans can connect with you on a deeper level. And then you want to build an awareness for your new art offers through well-targeted campaigns. So here we've got a Doja Cat ad that she ran for a charity event that they were doing called Rock the Vote, trying to get people out to vote and getting donations. But you always want to make sure that you have a mix of your paid media along with the organic stuff that you're doing on your site, as well as your socials, to achieve the best results, really.
Cool. Why don't you take them through some of the great things we're seeing on some of these artist websites? And Wes, would love to get your thoughts on this as well, because, you know, as I understand it, a lot of these are folks that are using Bandzoogle.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So here we've got a website from KJ52. We've got his website. This is actually when you first get to the website, you log on here, and he has the video, his most recent video highlighted, which is super important. And then he has a call to action to actually enter the site. So he's highlighting his new music before you even get in. It's right there plastered in front of you, which I think is really smart to drive views to his most important piece of content, or the content that he wants in front of his fans and viewers. And here we have Miss Melody Monroe on her homepage, and similar type of concept. So we have her new EP is highlighted above the fold. So of course, again, like when people come to your site, you definitely want to be highlighting your most recent or the offer that you want to drive them to. You want it to be visually in their face so that they can see it directly, so that you're driving people directly where you want them to go on your site. And then Cody Coyote Music. This was awesome because he also, before you even get into, you know, the site, you have a bunch of stuff here where he's letting you know what type of music he makes for new fans that are coming in. He lets you know what other things he does, as we talked about previously. You want to mix in some of the stuff that you do outside of music to make sure that you're, you know, building a stronger connection with your fans and allowing people to just see all of you. So he's got his keynote speaker stuff. He's a workshop facilitator, and then he has a button to play his music immediately on the site, which is also good. Again, highlighting what you want people to see immediately when they get there. On KJ52's site, we've got the artist bio, which is something that we don't typically see with a lot of major acts. But I think it's really important. It allows your fans to kind of learn a little bit more about you, learn a little bit about who you are, how you started in music. And it also gives people who are looking to do press for you a starting point for where they want to go with their write-up on you.
Yeah, not only that, to your point of some of the major label sites, often that's the only text on the site. Like typically they're just like pictures, videos, and so on, which makes it difficult if you want to rank in search engines. Like if you don't have any text-based content, it's going to be very hard for you to rank for the keywords that are related to things that people are searching for.
And the major artists, they probably get, you know, there's so much stuff out there talking about them to begin with. They probably don't need to talk about themselves as much, right? Whereas if you're more of an independent artist, you maybe have to talk about yourself a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then on Miss Melody Monroe's site, she's also got a news section where she breaks down the noteworthy press coverage that she's gotten for her music, as well as other things, which is really important because, again, you want to be highlighting the things that are most likely to continue building and fostering those relationships with your fans. So, of course, they're going to want to see when you're mentioned in different news articles, when you drop something new, or when something new, newsworthy happens. So I think that that's a really smart section to have on your site. And then again, for anybody who's looking for press coverage, they're going to want to know that you've been on other websites that are noteworthy as well. On KJ52's music page, he's got, he's of course got a listening button where you can actually play the music and listen to it before you buy it, which is always important. People want to hear stuff, especially in this day and age when streaming is so popular and you don't have to buy it to listen to it. They're always going to want to hear what you have to offer before they put up some money to support you. And then he even dives into some more, he provides some more value where he has some offers that have, just extra stuff like a signed poster. Some come with a vinyl or a CD and a signed poster, which is really smart because, again, there are going to be fans who are willing to make that purchase for you, who are like really hardcore supporters. And then on Miss Melody Monroe's music page, she's provided a ton of multiple purchase options here where you can buy the EP, but you can also purchase single by single. And sometimes people may only like one of your songs, or they might not want to jump in and purchase a whole EP, but she's got that offering for 99 cents, which I think is really smart as well, because again, any support that your fans can contribute is welcome. And then we got KJ52's shows page, which you always want to have that visible because you want to allow your fans to see where they can, where they can find you if you're going to be in their city, and you want to also offer them the option to purchase tickets directly through your website, because as we know, live shows offer a ton of revenue and profits for artists, especially for independents who aren't making as much money off of streaming. So live shows is definitely something that you want to push to your fans and make sure that they have the opportunity to make it there. And also on KJ52's page, he's got a photos page where he's showing off some high quality content, which is good for press. It's good for people who want to snatch photos, of course, to put in their blog write-ups. But he's also got some in-studio shots, some behind-the-scenes shots. And so you want to have both of those on your site just to like throw some stuff into the mix, have some candid photos that allow your fan base to just get more insight into what you do, and more insight into like how you work and how you operate. And just like behind-the-scenes content is really cool because they want to see what you're doing on a day-to-day. And then Miss Melody Monroe has a high-quality video page on her site where she's promoting larger projects. She has a whole video set up to promote her EP. So definitely, especially if you're going to invest in video, paying that amount of money for video, it makes sense that it's going to be for high-quality stuff and stuff that you're pushing to your fans, ultimately to try to earn revenue. So things like music videos that will go along with your LPs, or some people do trailers for their EPs and LPs. Things like that are definitely where you want to invest your time and money. And then if you take a look at KJ52's store site here, you can look at like he's offering a free exclusive content that's only available on his website. Directly on the store. And I think that's really smart to just add in a free piece of content. That way people can look at it and be like, oh, like I'm getting something free. And I'm also, along with whatever I purchase here, I'm also getting something free, which just, again, you're continuing to add value, especially if it's a high quality piece of content. And then he's also got these tiered offerings where you have the ability to make a purchase of something else on top of your CD or on top of your digital download as an extra piece of value. He's got books, posters, he's got a graph hat, just like different options and unique merchandise that maybe your fans might be interested in. And you'll know that based on how you're interacting with your fans via your website as well as socials, what's most likely to perform well. And then on Miss Melody's shop, again, offering that unique content here, she's got an interactive song diary, which I thought was like super, super smart, because it gives the fans who are like really into her music and her songwriting an in-depth look at how she goes about it. And so I thought that was a really interesting piece of merch that she had there to offer. And then she's using a digital bundle as well, where you can download, mobile wallpapers or computer wallpapers as well. And then we've got KJ52's contact page. So he's got a clear, concise contact page that allows you to submit through this form here. And you want to make sure that you're responding to fans and press when they reach out in a timely fashion to make sure that, again, you're not doing anything to damage that relationship. And then on KJ52's lyrics page, he has all of his song credits here, which is smart because it's going to help with your SEO if you're including your featured artists and your songwriters. If all of that stuff is also on your other socials and streaming platforms, it's good to implement that in here as well. And then with your electronic press kits, you want to make sure that you have high quality images. You want to make sure that you're showing your music and showcasing music videos that you have out. This is going to make it easy for anybody who's looking to do press coverage or to book you to just go directly to your site, and it's going to allow them to just go there and see what you're about before they make any decisions. And same thing with Miss Melody Monroe's EPK. She's got high quality images as well as a well-written bio. To Mike's point, that's going to help you on your site. It's going to help you rank for certain keywords in search. And then again, it's also going to offer people that are searching to do press for you an opportunity to just like be able to see what you're about. Stuff going on, a lot of stuff going on outside. And so with the rest of the EPK, you want to include the noteworthy press coverage. Of course, Miss Melody Monroe, she has it here again, even though she has that news section. She also has it in her press kit so that people can view it, and they can go directly to those different websites through her buttons here. And then she's also got the opportunity to listen to the music and download it here as well in her electronic press kit.
And just quickly point out, I think it's worth noting that, like, I think for a lot of times with independent musicians, like we talk a lot about the fan journey and stuff, but there's the fan audience, which is really important, but there's also like the industry press audience too to think about as well. So that the website kind of serves both purposes, I think, for a lot of artists, and they're kind of two really distinct audiences, but you kind of have to address both of them. So I think, yeah, it kind of speaks, what we're seeing, I think kind of speaks to that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And then here she's got some videos, and she's got performance videos, which is huge if you're trying to get booked, because it allows people to see how well you perform and your stage presence and what you can do on the stage. So having those performance videos there is key in the electronic press kit as well. And then again, same type of deal here. This is a booking page. So KJ52 went with the option to have like a direct page for booking, and he's got a piece of unique content showcasing his shows, but also talking about how he approaches his shows. So I thought that was a really interesting piece of content to add to his site. And he's also added here his podcast. So he's providing more content for those super fans to build stronger connections. Melody Monroe, to that point of like just having options to have different streams of revenue, she offers commissions here, and she has a whole page for her commissions on for music production. And you can do that with mixing, songwriting, and any of the skills that you've acquired musically. And then another unique piece of content, super cool, that Jonah has a movie called Jonah, which is his real name, and then he's got that call to action to head over to Amazon Prime to view it. And I thought that was a top-notch, high-quality piece of content that his fans would love. Of course, on your website, you're going to want to have the emailing list, and you're going to want to make sure that you explain what value they're going to get from going to your email list, as opposed to any other platforms that they might follow you on. And then, to the point we were speaking of earlier, we know that, especially when it comes to that discovery stage of the funnel and awareness, you still want people to be following you on socials. You want them to be interacting with you on socials. Of course, it's called social media for a reason. And so you want to encourage people to follow you on those platforms to receive even more content. So here we have the data behind search for KJ52's website. Wes, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about what's going on here.
Yeah, so this was kind of cool. We dug this up last week, and what it kind of speaks to, I think, is like what you were kind of going through, like kind of covering there, and like kind of to me speaks a lot to like thinking about all of your content strategically, and like what when you're on your homepage or whatever page you're sending people to, like how do you send them to the how do you kind of move them through the fan journey. And what was super interesting to me here when we looked at this data is that for KJ52, and we'll see the same thing for other artists, is that search makes up like a huge piece. Like in this case, like 3/4 of the traffic that's not kind of like considered direct, which we didn't count. That's a whole other conversation, but is coming from search. And I think that speaks a lot to how users are, how fans are moving through the funnel. Because if they're a good example, like, and I think there's maybe some notes with this later, like if somebody discovers you on TikTok and you have less than 1,000 followers, you can't link from your bio to your site. So how do you get them to the next stage? They discover you on TikTok, then what? And search is basically the only way for them to do that. They have to go to Google and have to find you somewhere else. So I think that kind of speaks to that. I think that this data is kind of speaking a lot to that kind of phenomenon, or whatever you want, behavior. Oh, I think you're Aaron. I think you're muted.
So, and then we've also got the data behind search for Melody Monroe. Did you want to jump in and talk about some of the stuff that she's doing on her site as well?
Yeah, I think so we're kind of seeing, well, yeah, so it sort of depends. I think like I was emailing back and forth a little bit with Melody and the other artists that we were talking about there, and I think for her, and I think probably for a lot of artists, like there's your traffic mix is going to change depending on what kind of campaigns you have going on. So I think that kind of in this case, I think right now there's a bunch of sort of press or kind of mentioned referrals, that kind of thing happening. Search is a bit of a smaller piece of the pie there, but what I thought it was interesting is the links page showing up to a lot of artists. That's one of the top sources of traffic. It's not, you would think that a lot of it would be coming from a lot more from socials or things like that, but a lot of times it is coming from the links pages that are coming from socials. And yeah, that's
that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Then over here, you can kind of see that buying traffic from her mailing list, socials, search engines, features, all of that stuff. When you look at her website, you can see that the socials are visible in her knowledge panel here. So she's doing a ton of stuff. They're doing a ton of stuff, on the website that's bringing in traffic and allowing them to rank for their name.
Yeah, and what a lot of the artists were telling me is that when they're driving traffic towards their website, they're pretty much without exception, everybody said that their top goals are either to get mailing list signups or to get purchases. So obviously, like number one, ideally in a perfect world, you get someone coming to your site and they have something to buy, they buy something right away, awesome. But I think probably more importantly, or especially if they don't buy right away, is to get them on the mailing list so that you can kind of continue the conversation with them. So a lot of them were saying that when they are getting people coming to the site and buying, it is coming from their mailing list, which is obviously something that they've built over time. So. This was an aggregate. So this was what we looked at a minute ago was just some specific examples of artists and what their traffic mix looks like. This is what it looks like for every Bandzoogle website in aggregate over the past 6 months. Okay. So again, it really kind of highlights there's really it's kind of crazy. There's really two sources of traffic. Everybody's coming from search or social. That's it. And I think even even link pages are on there. They're a little tiny sliver, but that would be from social probably too. So, it really shows you that I think it really kind of sheds some light on how some of the stuff, how fans are kind of moving through that funnel and what's important if you are trying to get people to your website. And search is like just, an obvious no-brainer. I mean, another thing that I thought was really interesting about this traffic is that if you can't see it here, but if you were to look at where that social traffic was coming from, it's almost all Facebook. And to me, that spoke to how easy it is, and it speaks to the limitations of social. Like, it's really easy to link externally from your Facebook posts, but you can't really do that with your Instagram or TikTok and things like that. It's not as linking isn't as accessible. So,
So to that point, I think it was TikTok that was blocking people from even saying link in bio on their application. You can't say it in your video. You can't post it in the comments for people to go there. So of course, like it doesn't bode well for your traffic on your website if you can never tell anybody or direct people or give people to go there.
Yeah, exactly. I think with TikTok, I think just this year they added the rule you have to have 1,000 users, and that speaks. I think something you're saying, Mike, earlier, like social media platforms can change in a second. The rules change, and suddenly, like something that was really important to you, like getting traffic from your TikTok to your website, it's not even available unless you have 1,000 followers. So,
Yeah, and unless you're already like building popularity, and let's say you don't know how to grow your followers, like it makes the channel basically really difficult for you to use. Because getting 1,000 followers on a channel where you don't necessarily know how it works, but you're making great content can be really, really frustrating. And then you feel like the channel's kind of like passing you by. So I think 1,000 followers for some folks who aren't so invested in the channel is a bit of a high bar.
Yeah, no doubt. So I think all that really, like, just going back to like just the search being I think we're getting to that soon, like just how important search is and how important search result pages are to that whole mix. And you see it there in the traffic sources.
Here we talked about how small a percentage of website traffic is that's coming directly from other platforms. So of course, like, kind of going back to like how important search is, a ton of this traffic is coming from search, and you're not really getting much movement at all. With the exception of social being like number 2 in this big chunk, but the rest of this stuff is not really moving the needle too crazy. So you definitely want to focus on your SEO efforts.
It's probably not to say that those channels aren't driving that search traffic, right? Like I mean, I did see, for example, like Bandcamp and SoundCloud, those kind of sites. There was some direct traffic coming from those sites to artist sites, but it was such a small piece, probably because there's a limited opportunity to link. Like Spotify is a perfect example. You can't even link to your website from Spotify. So all those people who are discovering on Spotify, it's they're probably driving audiences over to search, and that's how it's happening. That's what it looks like, anyways.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this actually links into the next issue or the next section pretty heavily, because it's the same with like other channels, right? Like if you're on TV, you're on the radio, someone's going to say, oh, I like this song, I'm going to search for this person. And if you're not there, you're missing out on opportunity. Like you're creating a demand that you're not capitalizing on. And so you really have to own your SERPs, basically. And let's just walk through real quick, like why that's so important. The SERP, for anyone viewing this that doesn't know what that is, that's the search engine results page. And so, for a artist, a musician, there's a variety of different components that you really want to own. So in this case, we're looking at Jay-Z. And so you've got the streaming platforms, you've got, in some cases, the concerts that you might have in the rich snippets. You've got, your videos showing up there. You've got your actual website link there. And these are all ways for you to basically, compose your brand within the Google environment so that no matter what, when someone Googles you, they're going to places that you control. And ideally it's your website that's the first one, so that you can be driving users with that demand that you create specifically to a place where you have complete control over everything that's there. You're able to sell things directly to folks. You're able to capture their emails and so on. Because again, you don't want to create all this demand and then not get anything out of it. And so, just looking at my search specifically for my name, my name is Michael King, obviously, but as a musician, I go by Mike King. And so, if you Google that right now, there's this wedding DJ from Kansas who has a lot of that real estate. And so it's been a really, it's been a big concern for me because, I've got this song that's being played on the radio, it's being played on television. And it's like, if you search for me, you got to wade through this other thing in order to get to me. And so, another issue here is the entity that is me. So, I've been making music for a long time, and in the past, I actually went by another name, which is Icon the Mike King, and that has been an entity in Google forever, basically. And so it's really interesting to see how Google understands from that query that that's related to the previous entity. And ultimately what we had to do is create a new entity, which is Mike King, in order to have that respected by Google and have its own knowledge panel and things like that. So these are all things that you need to account for as a musician, so you can make sure you have as much coverage as possible. And the way you do that is effectively by optimizing your own site for that. And there's also other things that you can do as well that we're going to talk about. But if you go to the website that we have, which is bestrapperever.com, we're doing a lot of the basic stuff, like making sure that we have metadata that meets the expectations of what a user might be looking for, but also fulfills the requirements that Google has. And we also do some pretty effective internal linking. We also make sure that all of our video content lives on this site as well. And then we also take it a step further, which is something that's far less popular these days. It's really just blogging, right? In the previous decade, there was far more musicians that blogged. Being that there's so many different formats of content, a lot of people prefer the more visual content. Me, I more prefer words. And, I know that there's more value from a search perspective by writing articles. And so to that end, when I released the record, I wrote a blog post around my thinking about it and, just really created an opportunity for people to further engage that also supports SEO. And, again, there's a lot of opportunity here for these interactive experiences. We haven't done one yet. We're working on some things, but, doing these interactive experiences encourages a lot of people to link back to you. And building links to your site is, going to be a really important thing to drive that authority that you need in order to rank more effectively. And so creating these sort of interactive experiences kind of shortcuts that. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that, a number of these different websites out there, primarily we're showing you right now, the bigger artists have a wealth of links pointing to them, which is why they rank so well, not just for their primary branded terms. So terms that, feature the artist's name, but they also rank for a series of other keywords as well. And so additionally, on the next slide, you want to make sure that you're tracking and monitoring your results. So there's a variety of tools out there, Bandzoogle, again, being the all-in-one, is a great place for you to start as a musician. But, there's a series of other things out there as well that you can leverage for specific reasons. And I would just encourage you to just go to these websites and check them out. But as far as getting recognized by an entity or by Google as an entity, it comes down to providing them information in very key places. So, Music Brains, I like to think of as the Wikipedia for music. That was one of the primary places that we put an entry for Mike King for me to become an entity in Google's eyes. And so it just allows you to provide a bunch of data with respect to, you know, artist info, websites, discography, things of that nature. So those can all be, you know, referenced directly by Google within the SERP. Excuse me. You can also create a Wikipedia entry, which can be difficult because that community is, you know, on top of things, and if you don't meet their guidelines, they will delete your page like they've done to us. We've created a Wikipedia page, and luckily for us, it's actually been indexed by Google when it was live, so it does appear in the rankings. But the ideal state would be that it's not deleted, so it is a result that is viable and valuable to you, for your fans to see. And then also there's Wikidata, which is, you know, the structured data version of what's in Wikipedia. So if you were to publish a Wikipedia entry, it will be also created as a Wikidata entry. But you can kind of shortcut that by just making a Wikidata entry. Like they don't have to have perfect parity. So you can put something in Wikidata without putting it in Wikipedia. But ultimately, they try to have as close parity as possible. And you can also like look through these results for opportunities for things that you should be creating. So as an example, if you look at the people also ask results, if you create content answering those questions, it will then start to appear as part of like Google's knowledge base related to those queries. So as an example, you know, if you look for a celebrity's net worth or whatever, well, once Google understands that is related to the entity, they can use that to answer other questions in other places without, you know, just explicitly like saying, hey, go to this page and find out about it. And another thing that you can do is check out Google's NLP API. I'm not saying that I need you to code anything, but you can just put copy into the demo and it'll tell you what entities Google recognizes from that copy. So as an example here, you can see Mike King, best rapper ever. They've extracted Mike King as an entity because that's part of what they know from everything that they have across the web. So back over to you, Aaron, for the website-centered marketing strategy.
I just want to mention, can I mention one quick other idea? Just might be worth mentioning there.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that is that there are other opportunities to add structured data that could help for that too, that Google will recognize. So if you were to even just publishing your music, getting it distributed when it shows up on SoundCloud and Spotify and stuff, and even Bandcamp, you know, pretty much every major kind of music publishing platform or video, any kind of content publishing, they'll usually add some structured data around that Google will be able to recognize, and that'll kind of help. You know, especially when it's on kind of trusted known platforms like those, and you can do it also on your own website, which is also just as important. It can help Google kind of figure out, you know, what you're all about and that you're an entity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you want to center your marketing around your website as opposed to some of those other platforms. You want it to be centered around something that you actually own. So one of the ways to do that is to use your website to build community. Some of the examples that we see of that is like Taylor Swift's fan club. A lot of people are using Discord in the music space as well as other industries to build communities around their products or services. And then BTS does a really good job of this with their fan club. Unfortunately, it's connected to a platform called Weverse, so it's not completely owned by them, and so that's something that you would definitely want to focus on, is building something, an entity that you own, where you can build a community through mailing lists, through some of those live events that we talked about earlier. And then you want to make your website about more than just you. The examples we have here, just like you want to provide interesting news that's happening in your industry. One of the more famous examples of this is Drake used to have a blog on Blogspot, an OVO blog, and that was one of the first places where The Weeknd's first release, House of Balloons, was posted. And at that time, Drake was already a pretty big star, and so it helped The Weeknd build his brand as well. And then you want to invite similar artists to be a part of community events, as we talked about earlier, just like inviting them for jam sessions or writing sessions, or if they're going to be a part of your music, you can invite featured artists as well as artists that you look up to or admire. You definitely want to be presenting an offer greater than what's on your other channels on your website. Just because of the nature of where we're at, and with social media and things like that, websites have kind of taken a back seat for a lot of artists, and not for nothing. There's a reason for that, and it's because the consumer is so highly engaged in these other platforms. And so to get around that, you want to offer content that's not on your social media, content that like has a little bit more value. You want to go the extra mile so that your fans have a reason to go to your site. You definitely don't want to just be posting the same thing that's on your socials. And then you can use emailing lists to promote exclusive content and offers that are only on the site. Again, creating that content that is going to be site specific and that is something that your fans can't really go anywhere else to get it. Giving them incentive to actually come to your site and view that content and also come back for more. So of course, like we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, email is nearly 40 times more effective for acquiring customers than social media ads. So you want to make sure that whether it's via your website, when you're driving traffic to your website, or on your social platforms, that you're providing them an opportunity to sign up for your emailing list so that you can send them new and exclusive content.
So just to wrap it all up, really we want you to center what you're doing on your website, because your website just gives you complete control, gives you all the data, gives you the opportunity to really make an experience that's unique to you. It also allows for, like Wes was saying, it's something that faces the industry folks as well, and allows you to effectively drive leads for opportunities, whether that's performing or coverage and things like that. And then it also allows you to just cut out the middleman. Like there's so many of these platforms that folks are using that are taking like 15, 20, 30% of their earnings. And we all know that it's difficult to get the money to begin with. So why are we going to keep, giving portions of that to other platforms? So just to wrap it up and sign off, I know Bandzoogle, Wes and his team are providing a promo code for folks that are tuning in. So it's well, you can go ahead and tell us about it, Wes.
Yeah. It's just if you do need a website or an EPK or anything, we kind of have tools for all those kinds of things that you'd need, selling merch and music. You can sign up. We have a 30-day free trial for everybody. That's just standard. Don't need to put your credit card in or anything like that. And if you do want to sign up, type in IPR 15, iPull rank 15, for 15% off the full year. The 50% off the first year of a paid plan.
Cool. And thanks for joining us. I've got a record you can check out. We've also got a content strategy guide that can give you some direction on how to like bring all this stuff together for the content you're creating. We've also got the SEO Weekly, which is a fantastic program that Garrett puts together weekly that you should check out if you want to laugh and also learn about all the new things that are coming. And then we've also got our Rankable series, where we talk about a variety of things, interview folks on things that you could be doing to ramp up your content and marketing efforts and so on. And yeah, that's all we got. You can reach out to all of us via email, follow us on the internets, on the socials, And yeah, thanks for joining us. And Wes, thank you so much for, all your insights and sharing the data and, just the awesome stuff that you guys do at Bandzoogle. I really appreciate, what y'all contribute, not just as a platform, but the type of content that y'all put out to really help people out. And it was a great resource for me specifically, just like ramping back up on being in the music space for marketing. So yeah, kudos to you, and we love what you're doing.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a fun conversation.
It was
Cool.
awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right, let's wrap it up. Peace.
Take care.